Sigma 28-45 f1.8 zoom lens is one of the most unique lenses out on the market right now. This lens offers prime-like quality with the added flexibility of a zoom lens. So if you're tired of carrying around a bag full of prime lenses, then this lens might be a good solution for you. Welcome back, my name is Zach Sopak, and before we hop into the rest of the review, I just want to give a big shout out to Sigma for letting me use this lens for a few weeks. They did not sponsor this video, no money exchanged hands, and they don't get to see this before I post it. My first impressions when unboxing the 28-45 were, wow, this thing is an absolute beast. Gosh, this thing is a freaking beast. At first glance, this lens looks and feels like a tank because of its really great build quality. It's got a really solid construction, it's metal in all the right places. The zoom and focus ring feel high quality, not too loose and not too firm. It's got a couple of customizable buttons, an autofocus and manual focus switch, a nice aperture ring that you can have clicked or declicked, and an aperture ring lock, which was one of my favorite features on the Sigma 24-70 version 2 that I also reviewed somewhat recently. If you want to check it out, it's up there. On the front of the lens, you have an 82mm filter thread, and it is also worth mentioning that this is a fully internal zoom lens. That means no part of the lens is extending or going back and retracting whenever you're doing your zooming in and zooming out. Using a lens of this weight and size was definitely a bit of an adjustment for me, coming from using smaller prime lenses on smaller mirrorless camera bodies. When you consider what this lens has inside of it, a variety of focal lengths, all at a constant 1.8 aperture, then it makes sense why this lens would be the size that it is and the weight that it is. Now, this doesn't mean that the lens isn't usable or that you can't bring it with you on the go, but it certainly is a bit of an adjustment if you're used to shooting smaller prime lenses. So why is the Sigma 28-45 f1.8 such a big deal? Number one is the focal range. 28mm to 45mm sits in a little sweet spot between a wide angle lens and a short telephoto lens, which makes this lens very versatile for various shooting situations. Three super popular lens focal lengths for prime lenses are 24mm, 35mm, and 50mm. And you basically cover all of those focal ranges with just this one zoom lens. Yes, you are 4mm tight on the wide end and 5mm shy on the long end, but it's a pretty close comparison when you consider that you can get basically three different lenses in one package. Number two, a constant 1.8 aperture. A lot of zoom lenses that have a constant aperture normally range somewhere in the f4 range, or the lowest that you will normally see is f2.8, which is a really good range, but it's not 1.8. Having a constant 1.8 aperture on a zoom lens, it kind of like broke my mind when I first tried it, to be completely honest, because I'm so used to using my primes, but it's like I can zoom with the prime. Just having that constant 1.8 aperture is so insane. To my knowledge, nobody is really making zoom lenses like this except for Sigma, and it's really cool. I think a lot more people should be doing it because it's kind of like the best thing ever. Now, the performance and the image quality is really where this lens shines. I wanted to test this lens out in some challenging low light situations. I run the media team at my church, and I brought the 28-45 with me one Sunday to really put it through its paces. And I'll tell you that the performance and the image quality is really where this lens shines. The 28-45 is a Sigma Art Series lens, which is very famous for having great sharpness, great color, and great contrast in its images. The images that I got from this lens were every bit as good, if not better, than the prime lenses that I'm normally accustomed to shooting with. Now, I'm not somebody who pixel peeps, comparing the different lenses and corner sharpness and all that type of stuff, but what I can tell you is that when I was using my prime lenses, or when I was using the Sigma Zoom, I didn't really notice a difference at all in the image quality. If anything, it was actually a little bit better. Having the constant 1.8 aperture is just prime-like, and it's great for having your subject be separated from the background. The autofocus performance on this lens is also fantastic. I was a little unsure when I first got it, with it being such a big lens and having that 1.8 aperture. I just wasn't sure how it would perform, but pleasantly surprised that it performed very, very well. I didn't really notice anything with the autofocus, which I think is a good sign. Like, it felt like it performed basically like one of my native Sony lenses, so I was really happy with the autofocus performance. I want to compare and contrast this Sigma 28 to 45 1.8 zoom versus prime lenses in general, and some things you may just want to consider. One thing that the Sigma zoom has going for it is flexibility. Shooting with a zoom lens is far more convenient than it is shooting with a prime lens. If you're shooting with a prime and you want to get an image that is closer to your subject, then you physically have to move closer with the prime lens, and vice versa. If you want to get a wider image, then you have to physically move the camera further away from your subject because you are restricted to that one single focal length. One way to counter that issue with prime lenses is to not just have one, but to have multiple prime lenses at various focal lengths. But with the Sigma 28 to 45, you can cover a variety of focal ranges with just the one lens. When it comes to cost, at the time of recording this video, the Sigma 28 to 45 1.8 is $1,339 US, which is certainly not a small amount of money, but if you were to buy, let's say, 3 separate lenses that were a 24 prime, a 35mm prime, and a 50mm prime that basically covered in the focal range of the Sigma, then you would probably end up at about the same cost, if not higher, than buying just the one Sigma zoom lens. As far as the weight and the portability of this lens, it's kind of a toss-up between the Sigma zoom and just having multiple prime lenses. Although the Sigma is a beast at 2 pounds, it's quite massive compared to smaller prime lenses. The flip side of that is having multiple prime lenses where I guess if you combine them, it could end up being as heavy or potentially as big because they're going to take up more space than just one lens. So you just kind of have to decide what your needs are and how you're going to be planning on shooting, and obviously your focal range. Now, who is this lens for? I think that this is a great option for really any sort of content creator. The 28 to 45 focal range I think is perfect for people who are making YouTube content, who want to have a nice blurry background and a more professional looking image. This could be a good option for vloggers, but with a caveat, I think you have to have a massive bicep to be able to handle the weight of this lens if you're going to be vlogging with it, and I know this from experience. I think that this lens is great for videographers because it offers the flexibility of multiple focal lengths of a zoom lens, but keeping that nice constant 1.8 aperture allows them to have great low light capabilities and beautiful bokeh. I think that this lens can be a really great option for event photographers. I think of things like weddings where a lot of people tend to favor prime lenses and normally will carry around multiple prime lenses throughout the course of a wedding day. Having just one prime lens, essentially, that is a prime lens that covers a variety of focal lengths would really be a nice option to have without having to switch out multiple lenses throughout the day. And I also think that this is a great option for everyday shooters who are just looking to elevate their photography without having to carry around a bag full of prime lenses. So is this the end of prime lenses? Well, maybe not entirely, but for some creators, the Sigma 28 to 45 f1.8 might be the only lens that they ever need. Now, there are a few drawbacks of this lens. Number one being the size and the weight. It is kind of a big lens. If you're just looking for something that's small and compact, then you may want to look elsewhere. But when you consider what this lens does, being a zoom lens that gives you a constant 1.8 aperture, then it makes sense why this lens has to be as big as it is. If I could change one thing about this lens, I think it would be the focal length. 28 to 45, although it is useful, it's not quite wide enough for some people and it's not quite tight enough for others. So if I had a perfect situation, I would want 24mm on the wide end and 50mm on the tight end. If this lens had that focal length, then I think it would be an absolute no-brainer for the majority of creators. So if you're someone who's tired of constantly changing out prime lenses while shooting and you're looking for something that could be a bit more of a one and done type lens, then the Sigma 28 to 45 f1.8 should definitely be on your radar. Let me know in the comments down below if you think that this lens could replace all of your prime lenses. And while you're down there, if you got value out of this video, why don't you go ahead and add some value right back to it by hitting that like button, and also hit that subscribe button. Be a part of the community and join the pack. And if you'd like to check out some more videos on camera gear, I've got some right here for you, or you can check out another video up there. But until the next time, my name is Zach Topak, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.